y'all. What's up? Welcome to What's News Delco. I'm Diamond, and I'm your host, and I'm here with my co-host,
Lee with the
Melita.
T.
And we have our special guest today, Mr. Armstead Harris, aka June, and he is the founder of Axes and Arrows. So, we got a lot of tea to talk about. Just on the way here, we were originally going to just be focusing on juvenile injustice in the county, but now got an update with what's going on in Yeadon.
Ooh,
Hmm.
what's
What's
going
going
on
on
in
in
Yeadon?
Yeadon?
Yeadon.
So,
Hot ass mess.
so let's rewind back to January of 2022, right? So back in Yeadon has been without a police chief for a while. They actually just sworn in a new one. What was that? Just last week?
Yeah.
Just last week. So he was a part of Philadelphia PD, but he's now coming over to Yeadon because Yeadon, they need some help. So back in July, there was a death by suicide, and his name was Sean Morcho. He was only 22 years old. He was a black male in the middle of a mental health crisis. Not too long after he was taken into custody, he attempted suicide. He was successful, and based on the details that the police department did release publicly, it wasn't accurate information. So thankfully, Melita and I and other organizers locally were able to do a walkthrough of the police department. We got access to a lot of important documents and information that should have been public regardless. And yeah, so the fact that now we got information about this Valori Group report being released. And Melita, what is that Valori Group?
So, after Sean's death, Yeadon Borough decided to hire a private group to come in and do an efficiency study on their police department and the operations, policies, and procedures and everything. The report was completed and given to Yeadon Council on December 31st, 2022, but it had not been released to the public yet. After Sean's death, there was a second death by suicide in Yeadon police custody 4 months later, so back in November. So more now than ever, the public wanted to know what was in this study. They still haven't released it to the public, but it got leaked this afternoon as we were driving here, and we actually were sent a copy of that study as well.
Welcome.
And
Don't we love God's timing? Don't we love his timing?
always on time. And one of the things that it says in this study that was done by professionals is that everyone in Yeadon, as far as the officials go, the council and the mayor need to accept responsibility and accountability in regards to what happened to Sean Morcho. And now, since this other young woman lost her life, I assume in regards to her life as well. And it's been a blame game since this happened. Council's been blaming the mayor's been blaming the council. But now that we know, according to the professionals who did this study, everyone should be held accountable.
And I know the study does specifically say that the mayor and council and just borough officials should be held accountable, but we definitely cannot forget about the DA's office in all of this. Because
Absolutely.
their investigation of the police department was only a 3-day investigation, and they cleared them of any and all wrongdoings. And not only did they do that for Sean's case, they did that for the recent one. So when we talk about accountability, as far as just the police department in general, the borough, yes, we already know that Yeadon is all over
Trash.
the place. Definitely. They should just disband altogether, but that's a topic for another day. So Jack, we can't skip over Jack because we've seen this with Fonta's case, now Sean's, and now the recent woman who just passed away, and that's a no-no. So although that this report just got leaked, it is 79 pages only. Originally, it should be between 600 to 700 pages. So still a small chunk of information was released. But once we are able to read through that, you already know we won't hold back on any information being public because it should be.
Absolutely. We got to hold these people, these officials accountable when the public's lives are in their hands. This is insane.
You think? Especially with the officials being black. And we constantly put our trust in those officials because we assume that because they look like us, they're going to fend for us and actually operate under black code and be like, we're going to actually, protect, serve, take care of y'all because we are the same. We want the same things. We should have the same rights. That's not the case. Politics is a very dirty game. Egos get involved. None of that matters anymore. And we've seen that with Sharon Hill, the Southeast Delco School Board, Yeadon. Just, it's a continuous cycle in Delaware County.
Yeah. Especially, unfortunately, especially with the black women that are in leadership in Delaware County, not all of them, but a lot that we've had to deal with regarding these cases, their behavior is the worst. And it's actually embarrassing.
It is 100% that we can operate on much better terms and fend for our community on a much better level than people that we actually see in power, especially folks that look like us. So you would think that there would at least be some type of, you know, a mental mindset where we're on the same page at least, but it's not even that.
So what do you think should happen next in regards to what's been happening in Yeadon and these two people losing their lives while in police custody?
Honestly, at this point, I can't even say that it was the fact that they didn't have a police chief. None of their trainings were done when they should have been. A lot of people weren't even fit to be in that position. I felt like we probably would have even been hired as police officers just because we applied and we're in the correct mind state or mental state when they actually need mental health trainings for them too. Because one, if there are people on duty, especially within the borough hall where they actually have their holding cells, there's a small hallway, and then there's the monitoring rooms where all the cameras are, and then there's a secretary's desk. It's a very, very small space for the police department where there's 3 holding cells. So you can't tell me that people who are sitting in the monitoring room, and then there's a secretary who has access to all of the video footage, and there's one person in custody, and you can't keep up with that one person in custody. I feel like at this point, they need to reevaluate the department as a whole, and it shouldn't even be in operation. Disband it altogether.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. So I guess we'll just stay on top of what's happening. Do some more digging. We'll be at the next Yeadon Council meeting next week. And we'll just keep everybody posted on what's going on.
Yeah, definitely. So, Mr. Armstead Harris. So, as we were just talking about, of course, kind of a brief summary of the justice system, quote unquote, that does not actually exist in Yeadon. Let's just talk about the juvenile injustice that has been going on. So, Jean, do you want to give a little background history on just you or your experience with the system?
Well, first off, it's more of a travesty to sit there and watch how people look at the lives of the youth as just dollar signs and numbers. That's first off. It's pure tyranny for people in power to feel like they can use institutions, use grounds where there can actually be healing at as places to further perpetuate trauma. I see that these places, I know what these places are. I've been to plenty of them. I've been to St. Gabriel's Hall. I've been to Summit Academy. I've been at Braxis 3. I've been to Gaudenzia. I've been to CFCF, DC, ASD. I've been to Greatesford and Camp Hill. Been to a lot of different places. And all of these places perpetuated me to the next step to get into the next one. I remember being at St. Gabriel's Hall, and it was an individual who worked there that told me, like, yo, watch, y'all hear this bell, y'all hear this horn going off at 12 o'clock? Yeah, this horn is actually the horn that you're going to hear when you go upstate. Keep playing around. And it wasn't said as a warning, no. It was said as a joke because everybody laughed about it. There was no actual teaching moments within. That's where we go and find a disjoint. So, my background history. I was a young man. My name's Armstead. Now, first off, if you don't meet me and just see my name and look at me, you wouldn't look at me and think I am who I am. But I carry myself as such. I carry myself in conviction, knowing that I represent not only myself, but I represent my family and I represent a culture. But it took me a long time to get to that point.
Right.
So doing a little bit more digging, I had to fend for myself at a point in time. I had to do for myself. And the reason why is because school wasn't the big thing for me to worry about when it came down to either worrying about going to school or worry about eating. People don't really speak of what a black man really has to go through just making it and being able to grow inside the environment that's given to him.
Because for sure, this environment, this environment that everybody speaks of, that we live in, that we can build up, the deck was already stacked against us from the rip. I've done my research, and I'm convicted by that research. That's why I don't mind looking people in the eyes when I speak to them and let them know how I feel about it. And I let them see the passion in my eyes because that's what it's supposed to be. That came from being inside of these institutions and having to look at these people and know the lies that they're telling me, but having to put on a smile just to make it through the process. Because if I didn't put on that smile, I would either get FTA, which means failure to adjust. How you gonna tell a child he's failing to adjust in a messed up system? How? But you'll either get FTA or you'll be hopped up on a bunch of medication. And I'm not taking no medication to run from my problems. I wasn't raised that way. I was raised to stand on all 10 toes like my father and his father did. So then stepping past that point, I got to a point where, all right, survival was good enough, but I was already enthralled in the trap, the mousetrap that we live in inside these environments, the same environments that these young men are going through right now. Getting stuck inside of that, behind the glamour and glitz, led me to being convicted by principles and morals, which a lot of people don't really believe nowadays that these young men and women hold on to. That's the reason why they stick to these codes and be willing to die for it or be willing to ride for it.
Right.
Be willing to go to jail for the rest of their life for it. Nobody really wants to peel back the layers and take off the mask. So I had to go to jail in order to take off the mask because I was only left with myself. I felt I was the hero in my story, and I became the villain because all my powers were taken away from me. I stopped being I'm Junebug. I became who I was without all that, and I made good friends who went through the same instances I did and turned their lives around. Whether you believe it or not, it's messed up at the stuff that they do to us, going through these situations. But going deeper into my story, everybody that got out the same time I did, because I got out a little bit ago from doing 7.5 years. Everybody that got out, we all still home. And we all are each other's crutches. But that took for me going to jail to strip all of that off of me. All of that street code, all of that mentality, everything. Because I stood on all 10 toes about mine.
So what was that experience like for you, like actually inside? What was that turning point where you were just like, this is not where I want to end up again?
The turning point came September 14, 2017. That's when it came. I prayed and asked for an opportunity to be able to come home and take care of my mother and my father. That's where it came from. That turning point, when I was granted the opportunity to come home because I was facing the rest of my life for a crime I never committed. Anybody that know me know the truth. It gave me an opportunity. When I saw that it was real, opportunity was given to me, I just begged for an opportunity to be a better version of me. And I was given that opportunity, so I took it and ran with it. I worked out. I got my mind right. I taught myself Spanish. I taught myself some sign language. I taught myself some Italian. I got really deep into communications with people because we are our best resource. For real, to be honest with you, y'all sisters are our best resource. Y'all are our most natural resource. The best resource known to man. Why? Because y'all house the most beautiful thing on this earth, our children. That's our future.
Wow.
That's powerful.
I apologize for taking up so much time.
No,
So much time.
you're
This
good.
is our
No,
time.
we wanted to give you a platform to share your story and your views. But speaking of children being the future, there's a lot going on right now in Delaware County in regards to the juvenile justice system. And honestly, it wasn't 100% on my radar. But once we worked on Fonta's case, where 2 teens were charged as adults for a murder they did not commit, I started to really look at what was going on in the county. And then after that, the whole Academy Park incident back in the beginning of November, where we saw video footage of children being brutalized by state police because they had a protest and someone decided it got out of hand and to call officials in. And as a parent, to see that footage, it was very disturbing. But then we went to that emergency meeting and heard student and parent testimony of what the kids were going through. Kids were being maced and pepper sprayed, kicked, beaten. Kids who were just trying to get to their cars so they could leave were being harassed and called all types of horrible names and slurs by state police officers. About a dozen kids were arrested. And they were dehumanized in that process, right? And parents were running to get their kids because they were afraid their kids were going to be shot and killed by police. Not being harmed by their fellow students, but by officials, right? And now we have both the Juvenile Detention Center as well as Glen Mills School, which were both closed because of deplorable conditions and
God knows all types of atrocities.
the abuse that was taking place, which if anyone has read that report, which is available online, it was horrible. There were kids that were forced to drink toilet water, kids being physically abused, sexually abused, kids that were in such distress that they were considering ending their lives, and people who were supposed to be there to keep them safe, just watching, allowing them to make those attempts. It's insane that they're talking about reopening a facility when it wasn't working the first time. And actually, I learned this from you, but the CDC says that the answer to juvenile delinquency is not detention. And in fact, because I want to make sure I quote this properly, that incarcerating youth undermines public safety, damages young people's physical and mental health, impedes their educational and career success, and often, as we know, exposes them to abuse. So if the CDC, which we put so much trust in, is saying that to help children to turn their lives around, the answer is not to put them in jail, why are we so hell-bent on reopening a child jail?
Okay, so I'm going to speak on that, and that right now I'm irritated. I'm super irritated.
Yeah.
I am pissed off to a whole nother extent, because at first I heard it was just one, but now I'm knowing that it's two, and I'm knowing that it's confirmed it's two. Let me say this. We all ran and bought masks. We all ran and bought masks when the time came. When they said it was time for us to mask up, we masked up. When they said it was time for us to get shots, we got these shots. Everybody was so diehard about it. I had my people at my job telling me stories about how they came up with all these epiphanies and dreams, and everybody was coming out with songs about getting the shots and wearing masks. But here it is. The CDC is saying how we should do so many other things above incarcerating our children.
But they ignoring that, huh?
Okay, so that's just, let's just give that a moment of silence real quick. Let's let that sit.
Yeah, 100%.
Next. I don't see where is it locking a person up, treating them like an animal, the answer, when there's so many other things. When you could just say, hey, let's start a program where we're going to build something. Okay, well, we need to get people to labor. Now, this is not child labor. This is everybody putting a hand in creating something. Because we all know when we create something, we have a different type of respect for it. We have a different type of love for it. We care about it differently. We give it that proper TLC when we are helping create something. So we build something. Now we have to have labor. But at the same time, we have to have light while we're doing this, right? So we have to have people that are running electric to us. But then we have to have a food source, a water source. Oh, well, we got people there for that. oh, well, we need to have somewhere where we can use the bathroom. Okay, well, we're going to have somewhere to use the bathroom, but we're going to have somebody there to make sure that the bathroom is habitable to use. Mm-hmm. Now, look at how many jobs were just created. Look at how many apprenticeship programs can be created. Because those are all trades. Mm-hmm. Why is this not on the table first? Before building a place to house them and further traumatize them, because you're only perpetuating recidivism. And we all know what recidivism is. Because when I was in Summit Academy, when I sat down on the line at the res, they told us, oh, out of every 10 of y'all, 9 of y'all gonna come back within a year of going home. After I left there, I came back within 6 months. For one dirty arm.
That's wild that they say that to young people and children. They're programming you to, it's like a subliminal message, to make you go out and do something for you to return. It's so intentional and it's disgusting.
Perpetuating trauma.
It's because people like us aren't built to make mistakes. Just being present alone, we are already a target. So when the system is saying that, oh, we thought this black man did this, like you said, you were wrongly convicted for a crime we didn't even commit. We don't have that option to either decide whether or not we actually want to make that choice. We're just automatically going to be targeted.
And the great part about what we do so great is because there will be participatory defense hubs popping up.
As they should be.
And these participatory defense hubs, they will be able to cure what we have going on in due time. Not the cure, but we'll be able to be on the road of curing it. Because I just was canvassing earlier, right? And it's funny that where I was canvassing at, everybody was involved. People would come to the door and they would actually stand there and talk to you because they really want to know. So I'm like, okay, people want to know. I'm giving them exactly my bones. Because I'm not just giving them what's on the paper for me to tell them. No, I'm telling them my experience too. So you would know that this is not just something that, oh, he's just saying this because he's reading the script. No. I'm telling you this because I was a result of what happens when you put a child away when you don't need to. I graduated high school when I was 16. I got 1346 on my SATs. I dropped out of school for 1 year. I could have graduated when I was 15. But look where my life ended. But look where I am now.
Yeah, and the county, they definitely don't see, they see these kids as numbers, not as children, not as human beings. And we've all been to some of those board of managers meetings, which they have on a Tuesday at 4:30, so I feel like they're intentionally not making it accessible because a lot of the county, a lot of the areas where these children would be coming from, working class people, we're still at work at 4:30. Whether it's on Zoom or not, that's not accessible to me.
And how many kids are going to corral there coming from school? Because.
Right. Not only that, but they've already signed contracts to have this new facility be built or the old one be renovated. So they weren't worried about community feedback. Now that they got pushback from people like us, now all of a sudden they want to circle around and try and get community feedback. But even with that, they're not really publicly advertising these meetings where people are going to hear about it and see about it. We all found out about a meeting at Upper Darby last month.
A few hours before
it happened, right? Which was insane. And then when people spoke out about, hey, we shouldn't do it this way, bring it to the school districts, we'll bring the people. Seems like they're still not listening because now there's a meeting taking place on February 23rd at a church in Darby, Mount Zion Church at 1008 Center Street. But it's a very small church. And again, a lot of people aren't going to know about these meetings, but they're claiming that they want to collaborate with the community, give feedback, figure out what the youth need to thrive. When studies have been done, the CDC already says that the way you help children to thrive is by putting the resources, the programs in their communities where they are. But they're advertising this new facility oh, we're going to have a rec room for yoga. We're going to have a music recording studio so kids can. But you're saying that in order for kids to have access to programming that they could use right now, they have to be in the worst trouble possible and get arrested and sent to jail first. That's
crazy. Ludicrous.
Makes no sense.
100%.
So what you just said. Finishing up where I was saying, it's crazy that you said that because with talking to everybody, we asked the question: if you had $45 million, what would you do with it if it could do something to help the community? Now, I say that empowering individuals standing in front of me because I've spoke to some individuals in power who said what they would like to see or what they would like to do. But see, here it is. You have a bank account. If you really want to exact some change, step out of your shoes, put on your sneakers, step down into these places. Don't be scared to go to the school and rally everybody together because you know you're going to get more parents at school. Why? You're talking to their kids. You're an adult. Any parent will want to know who is an adult talking to my child. Plain and simple.
And one thing about the kids, they're not afraid to tell you like what they want.
Nope.
They know what they're in need of. They're in these schools every day. They know what they're lacking. They know what they need, and they know what they've been asking for and being denied that. So at this point, I don't even think it's the fact that the officials don't have the access or even the time to like step into these schools. It's the fact or the matter is like, do they actually care to? Do they actually want to take that time out and step down into communities that they're not familiar with? Like even the chair of the Juvenile Board of Managers, Kevin Madden, lives in a wealthy neighborhood, didn't grow up in any predominantly black or brown area, doesn't go to any predominantly black or brown area, but yet you're trying to tell us what's best for kids or people that look like me.
Right.
It doesn't work like that.
Speaking of Kevin Madden,
like
now we all went to the December Board of Managers meeting where Kevin Madden said that they are not going to address the past, meaning the abuses that took place that made them shut down the Juvenile Detention Center in March of 2021. And then he also asked, how could they open up this new facility sooner? Diamond, in the fall of 2021, you were actually on a juvenile justice panel with Kevin Madden. Is there a difference in what he said on that panel and his attitude then versus how he is now with this new facility?
Absolutely. So based on that panel, so that was the Delaware County Black Caucus panel for juvenile justice. And I was on the panel with Congresswoman Mary Gay Scanlon, Senator Williams, State Rep Regina Young, Kevin Madden, like all the officials. And a narrative that they put out and was actually not even accurate was the fact that youth aid panels were active throughout the county. So during that time, of course, Fonta was just brutally murdered at Academy Park High School that year as well. But the fact that they're saying that youth aid panels were accessible, but they weren't accessible in black and brown communities. It wasn't even active in Sharon Hill, where Fonta was shot and killed. So
definitely not active in the William Penn School District, I can tell you that.
Absolutely not. And then rewind a couple months ago, because I also went to a panel at Swarthmore College with Kyle and other organizers, and Tanner Rouse from the DA's office spoke. And again, he told the students there, we're working on youth aid panels. We won't have to worry about these numbers when it comes to crime for the juvenile justice system because they're being reduced. Being reduced how? At the end of the day, we know that the youth aid panels were never successful from the beginning. And the fact that this is now, again, the narrative is going out as a cover-up, and you're saying that we're actually working hard to have these conversations with these kids who are committing crimes or are acting out or showing disruptive behavior when you're not. That's not your concern. You don't want to deal with it at all because, again, like I said earlier, they're not built to make mistakes. You make mistakes, you're done with, throw them out, move on to the next one. So the fact that, again, they're still pushing that youth aid panel narrative when they're actually in the works of reopening Lima.
Right.
Absolutely
And
not.
Kevin Madden also publicly acknowledged the fact that there is no law that mandates that Delaware County has to have a juvenile detention center. We can have any facility to help children. It does not have to be a jail. And these officials are choosing to make it a jail. So that speaks volumes of how these officials that we elected, right, feel about black and brown youth. And it's wild because some of the members of the board of managers for this juvenile facility are parents and are people of color. When we were in Upper Darby last month in the meeting, when Upper Darby school board members, teachers, and even a student were voicing their concerns and saying what they needed and what could be helpful to youth. Dr. Monica Taylor from County Council, who's also on the board of managers for this facility, sat in the back of the room quiet as a church mouse. Didn't say anything to anyone when she's one of the people that's in charge.
And left
which
early.
is wild. I didn't even know she was in the room until she got up from sitting behind me to leave. So she didn't say anything to address people's questions. She left it all for the poor superintendent of juvenile justice and rehabilitation services, David Irizarry, who's trying to be helpful, but the people that hired him don't give a damn, right? But she intentionally left before the meeting adjourned so that people couldn't ask her questions personally. So what are we really doing? And why are these people making any decisions about our kids when they don't give a fuck?
What I'm starting to realize is that when it comes to mistakes and punishable crimes, punishment is only equal to trauma. Like, if you're not traumatized throughout this punishable experience, then their goal was not accomplished. Because at the end of the day, these kids, they can learn so much more when they're put into valuable spaces and even safe and comfortable spaces, but you're throwing them into cages. What are they going to be left with but their thoughts? Like, and not only that, but such horrific and traumatic informed, staff members, they don't care. Because like we heard at the rally when one of the moles that used to recently work in Lima talked about a suicide attempt where staff members just stood there and watched. They're not built to be in environments
That's
like this.
insane. And that poor woman, she's traumatized too. Like, they're not trying to do anything to heal the damage that occurred. And what's even more wild to me is that no one from these facilities that worked there that was causing the harm is being held accountable. Like, and that's not like an exaggeration. Literally no one is facing any type of accountability. And the people that worked in these facilities before they closed are actually able to reapply and possibly get hired when they reopen. So it's going to happen. It's going to continue to happen. They're not doing anything to stop the cycle of harm and abuse.
There's so many other things that the children can do that they have available. Like, and the community has the opportunity to have that voice. Like,
Right.
I don't understand, and I'm gonna say this too because I'm not just on going at the system because the system is bad, the system is corrupt. Yes, it is. I ain't saying it ain't. But what I'm gonna say is too, the onus falls on us as parents because we have to step in. We do have to step in. If we don't step in, or at least give the individuals around us the opportunity to step in, then what are we gonna really have?
I mean, we definitely have to get back to being a village for our children. I'm fortunate enough where I'm one of those moms that I work from home, right? So if something is needed at the school, it's nothing for me to be like, yo, I'm taking an early lunch or whatever and shoot over to my kid's school. Like, I'm a band mom, I'm a home and school mom. But the reality is, a lot of people, it's not the parents, a lot of parents don't care. Are there some out there that don't give a damn? Yeah, I'm not saying they don't exist. But we have people who are working class people. Like, we already know inflation is crazy, right? So there are people right now who are working 2 and 3 jobs just to make sure they can feed their kids, that they can have a house to live in. They don't have the time. So those of us that do, we really got to step up. And like, if you see a kid doing something they ain't supposed to be doing, young man, where you supposed to be right now, right? Like, I'm that type of mom. Like, I'll pull up on these school kids. They be like, oh, there go Tay and Josh mom. Right?
I'm everybody Uncle Junebug.
But we need more of that. But people are we've gotten to a place where people are afraid to address other people because you might get cussed out, you don't know. But we got to get back to that. And we also need to figure out how we can create livable wage jobs in our communities and things like that's one of the things I love about the program Safe Corridors. Like, they go into the community, they hire community members, pay them a livable wage to go into these schools, help patrol the hallways, but not only that, mentor these kids, take them under their wings to steer them down the right path, redirect them, have restorative programming in place. Like, we need more of that, but most schools ain't got the money to sustain stuff like that.
So speaking towards that, February 28th, please show up to Yeadon Hall. Please show up because it's gonna be a big talk for everybody to have the opportunity to say what they need. Now, the reason why I say that because, man, we got what we need inside the community. We have what we need. We need them to take their hands out of it and let the individuals who are working empower the other individuals who are there. There are men out here. It's just the fact of that there's been such a dark shadow casted over them from the world's name and label for them that our brothers and sisters who are working hard don't have an opportunity to even bridge the gap. That's why I said, like, it's funny being everybody Uncle Junebug, because everywhere that kids know me, they know me as Uncle Bug. I'm there for them. I want to be there for them. I want to teach them. I love talking to them. I work with different kids. It's the thing to do. Being around my sisters and letting them know that you can be around me and feel safe, because I bring a safe space with me. If we're not in one, I bring one with me. So don't worry about it, sis. Just have my back when it comes time for me to let these kids know what time it is. If I gotta check one of them, stand by me, because they gonna run to you. I know they gonna run to you. They gonna want you to coddle them. No, let them know that he's here for a reason.
Yeah.
So the question is, how do we even go about bridging those gaps? And I can't even say versus like, black and brown or even black and white. More so is really black and black right now.
How do we bridge the gap? We bridge the gap by everybody putting their hands into it for those who are on deck. Because like you said, sis, there's some working brothers and sisters out here that don't got the opportunity to do so. And that's why I spoke on that trust. But then the next step is for everybody hands on deck to be hands on deck. Point blank and period. We don't relent. We are relentless in this approach. There's no distance far enough to stop our persistence. Point blank period. So that means that you sit on this corner all day, you better be sitting on this corner making sure these kids get back and forth to school. Because back in the day, that's what they used to do for us. Oh, okay, you're at the store all the time playing this little slide on. Okay, you better make sure that these kids ain't messing up inside the store and all that, because they representing us when they come inside these stores. They represent us when they walk out these front doors. So you gotta hold them accountable to that. But at the same time, you gotta hold yourself accountable to that too. So stand tall. Don't be sitting at the machine all drunk and all that and crazy. No, you know you have a vice that you deal with. Deal with your vice in the most positive light. Don't let them see you looking like that, because we're not promoting that narrative. The biggest problem is that the children walk out their front door. The first steps that they take, they walk past a deli or a store that people of our color are not in ownership of. We own nothing. We are only consumers. So when they walk past these places, the only thing they see our people doing is the wrong things in front of these places or within these places. So that perpetuates trauma too. That's why I place it back on us for accountability as well, and stand by and hold ourselves to a certain standard. Because it's not just about the problems that we went through, because we can perpetuate some of our own too. Recognize it and change it. Stand firmly on changing it, and then move forward.
Yeah, we definitely have to hold ourselves accountable too, for sure.
Yeah, it's one thing to be black in America, but black in Delaware County, that's also another narrative.
Now,
Yeah.
funny thing,
When I first moved to the county,
I'm not gonna say
man.
where I was at. I'm not gonna say how that went, but I'm gonna say when I went inside this store earlier, right? It was these two guys who were of different culture. They were speaking about me, trying to make a joke about me. They said, "Look at him with his big A titties," because I'm muscular. I laughed at them because I understood exactly what they said, and hey, it was what it was. But when I got to the counter, I said to the person at the counter, I was like, "Que lo que hay, mi hermano? ¿Cuánto eso?" Talking about my bottle of coffee. Everybody stopped talking. They stopped laughing. It got quiet. The person at the front told me. Left it at that. Hasta luego, mi hermanos. ¿Qué es lo que hay, mi hermano? ¿Cómo se dice? Nothing wrong with that.
Being black in the county, so I'm not originally from Delco. I'm a West Philly girl. From
The best side.
Hey, from Overbrook, 62nd and Lansdowne, LA all day, all that good stuff. But I moved out here. I moved to Lansdowne when I was 19. So my oldest was a year old. I was extremely pregnant with my second son. And I'm young. I'm 19. I got a family hand-me-down car, so I got a hoopty, right? In the first 3 years that I lived in Delco, I was probably pulled over a dozen times driving while black. I fought all the tickets and I won. They were all thrown out, but I was definitely profiled. And I'm like, what the hell is this? First of all, I was driving in Philly without a license for a long time and never got stopped for anything, making illegal U-turns, all types of stuff. And the first couple of times, I'm like, maybe I did run a stop sign. Maybe I was doing more than 10 over the speed limit. And then I realized the parent, like, no, you just driving in the wrong areas. And I'll never forget, I was coming from a friend's house in Darby, and I was driving along the cemetery going home, and an officer pulled me over for running a stop sign. And I had been living out here long enough to know ain't no stop sign right there, right? So I'm like, okay. Then gave me a ticket for not having my seatbelt on when he saw me take it off to reach into the glove compartment for my insurance and registration, which was wild. But when he looked at me, he said, didn't I just pull you over 10 minutes ago? But, oh, we all look the same, huh? No, I just left the house. That blew my mind. I was like, oh, I don't think I like being out in the county. And when I got a better car, that shit stopped. But, like, literally, like, I felt like every time I was leaving the house, I was getting pulled over. Like, it's wild.
It is. That takes me back to when we were doing canvassing for Fonta's case out in the southeast Delco area, and there was an officer that circled the block that I was on twice. And eventually he stopped right in front of me and he asked, when are you going to be leaving? And I'm just like, I'm looking around, I'm seeing a white man on his porch, Blue Lives Matter flag, Trump flags, figured that he was probably the one that called the cops and had him circle around because I just wasn't looking like I was from this neighborhood. So I'm just looking at him. I didn't say anything. I just told him, we're canvassing, we'll be done soon. And he was just like, let's make it quick. And then he just drove off. So at that point, it just took me back to when we as a group went back to Washington for just the March on Washington. And I saw this sign that said, we keep us safe. And I resonate with that on a daily basis because you never know as a black person, even in your home, anything can happen. Your life can be taken. People can just bust in at any moment. You walk out the house, don't even know if you're going to make it back safely. You never know what that narrative is going to be. And Delaware County has an issue with comparing themselves to Philly all the time, with saying these crime rates aren't the same, we're safe out here. Even the superintendent for Upper Darby Police said racism doesn't exist here. As a white man, you're telling me as a black woman it doesn't exist here? So obviously we're living two different narratives in just two different worlds. And at this point, just thinking about these kids and this system and how it's built, I'm concerned.
Yeah. Oh, it exists. Delaware County don't like to talk about it. Like, if we don't say anything, it disappears. It doesn't exist. And that's far from the truth. And I think that's another reason why the county is so hush-hush about reopening this juvenile facility. Like, I had a meeting today with our school district to let them know what's going on and how we can, like, collab and get, like, the county in here to see what we need now, right? Y'all got all this money, put it in the school districts. We already know that they're underfunding us. They just ruled the other day that the PA funding for schools is unconstitutional.
Right.
And William Penn School District and Southeast Delco School District were two of the 6 districts that sued the state, and that lawsuit started in 2014. Here it is, 2023, and we're just getting a ruling on it. Lord knows how long it's going to take for them to actually start putting the appropriate funding in these underfunded districts, right? So we can't wait. We have to take action now. And if the county can help, great. So we'll see what happens. But no one knows that this is happening, right? Talking to people who work with kids every day, and they're like, yeah, we just found out. Or like people are like, they're reopening? Like, well, where are they getting the money from? That's a good question. We need to ask these questions, but they're not trying to let the community know. So for people who are watching or who will watch this later, there are 2 community meetings coming up that is being hosted by David Irizarry, the superintendent for Juvenile Services and Rehabilitation Services. So the Board of Managers have now decided to go get community feedback, right? We actually need the community to come give feedback. If you know what your young people in your school district, in your neighborhood, in your household need, that they're lacking, the resources, the programming, whatever they need, like now is the time to tell them this is what we need now, not this facility. So February 23rd, the meeting is going to be at 6 p.m. in Darby at 1008 Center Street at Mount Zion Church. And then there's a meeting, February
27th in Chester.
And we'll definitely share those flyers on our pages and everything. And I do believe that Delaware County Council now has those flyers up on their social media pages as well.
Correct.
But we need people to come out to those meetings because now is the time to yell at them, cuss them out, whatever you want to do, to be like, hey, this ain't going to fly. We're not having it. Because if there's no pushback from the community, they're going to continue to what they're doing. And we can't allow kids to be exposed to more trauma and abuse. It's not going to make anything better. It's not going to help them at all.
Yeah.
True statement there.
Black trauma shouldn't be trending in general.
No.
But it does.
Can I just ask one question real quick, y'all?
Yeah, of course.
Walking out your front door every morning, how does it feel when you get in your car and you know that this may very well be your last time sitting in this joint if it go bad?
Ooh, for me, I mean, every time I drive by a police car, there's a police car behind me, like, I'm terrified because I'm like, shoot, what did they pull me over? But as a mother to 2 black sons, I have a son who'll be 18 March 1st, and my other son's right behind him who'll be 17 this summer. So we're at the age where we're trying to get our driver's licenses and these things, and it makes me so nervous, especially because my younger son, he's the bigger of the 2. He's taller, he has the deeper voice, right? He has like this beautiful afro, and he's darker skinned than my older son. So I'm very terrified because I know as soon as they look at him, especially, like, it's going to be
Okay, so
a whole situation. Like, so I'm terrified for them to drive. And I'm just like, Lord, please, like, you got to pray over your kids every time they walk out the door.
thank you for speaking to that, because that's the point that I wanted to make. I walk out my door every day, and I'm not scared at all. I know I live in purpose. I know I live with strong convictions. I know I live in principle. So me being a bigger African-American man, if I move the wrong way, it can come off intimidating. But at the same time, with knowing that, I know I gotta move a certain way. But the spaces that y'all sisters are putting together right now by being, the ones who will be able to convey the message, that these spaces need to happen more often, because it's other men that need to be able to speak their truth, because y'all got the opportunity to give it to them, and I felt so comfortable coming here being able to speak to y'all. I just want to tell y'all that before anything else. Thank y'all so much. Like, it really means a lot to me. Y'all represent something beautiful that within a village and within a tribe is what perpetuates the positivity and the cure for our people, for our culture, because it all started where it started with us. So all people are our people. It's just the fact of that we all have to treat it that way. But this space right here that y'all have, like, it's a blessing. It's euphoric. Just being able to speak to y'all like this. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Oh,
No,
thank
we
you
want
for
your voice
coming.
to be heard. We want other people to be able to be heard because there's so many people who have similar stories to yours. And we want this to be a safe place for people. Like, even if our views aren't aligned, like, you're still safe to share, like, whatever it is that's on your mind.
Well, we gonna have to live in our truth one day. So better now than never, right?
Absolutely. Any closing thoughts, Diane?
Yeah, I actually do want to answer your question just about what I think when I just leave the house. I eventually went from just living in fear to knowing that the risk that I take, because one, I am a sexual assault survivor. So of course, just sometimes just going out alone, especially at night, I just get triggered in a sense because you never know. Like, I'm a 5'2" tall, black woman who doesn't even look my age. I could pass literally for probably a ninth grader, like fresh high schooler. And my voice doesn't help either. So I know that I give off, the childish tendencies, but shifting from just that mindset to just being on the front line of work like this, that there are a lot of risks that come out of that. We've seen so many leaders that look like us who have been brutally murdered, still cases unresolved. We could be taken out any day, anytime, any second, but we choose to go out each day, fight for what we believe in and what we want to see accomplished and changed in our communities. So we know that we're taking those risks. So at this point, I feel like it's now a custom for me to just pray. I don't know what to expect, but I never question God's timing or just his path for me at this point anymore. Whatever you see is my next step or my next outcome. I just know that I just have to accept that.
Yeah.
So for sure, that mean men, everybody, all the men that's watching out there, that mean protect y'all sisters.
Yes.
Point blank and period.
Especially the ones out here doing the work.
I'm protecting mine. Make sure y'all protect y'all's, man.
Diamond,
Protect our sisters, man. Seriously.
Diamond definitely brought up a good point about us being activists, especially dealing with like the Fontability case and then the Yeadon case, going up against police officers. When we know how the boys in blue play, it's definitely been something that's in the back of my mind every time that we've gone out to a protest or a rally. Like, my children and my close family members know where the title of my car is, because it's going to come to a point where we're going to need bail money, right? It's going to come to a point where, like, Delco might not respond as peacefully as they have been and just, like, close the roads or whatever. Like, what happens when the next thing happens? Because unfortunately in this country, there's always something happening when we're met with tear gas and rubber bullets like they did people in Philly. So we definitely, the more work we do, the more we're putting a target on our backs, especially as Black organizers, which I'm going to need these white organizers in the county to realize, like, and y'all need to step up and do your part to protect us instead of, like, always hitting us up to come take action because something's going on. Like, every time we do that, we're putting ourselves in danger.
Right.
So y'all need to step it up, for real.
Yeah. I also want to touch on what you said just about, like, the brothers protecting us. We got to be careful with that, too, because, like we just saw in Tyree Nichols' case, Black men aren't always,
All skin folk ain't kin folk.
they aren't always the way to go because, like I said, when we had that protest, Black cops bleed blue, too. They follow the same rhetoric that, the white person would, and they are sucked into that system, and now they comply to what those actions are usually generated towards us. They now generate it towards each other. So at this point, I can't even say I want to lean on, Black men for protection, but I have to figure out what my own protection would be for me, because at this point, there's really no one to depend on.
But also for the fellas that are in our communities, like, looking to y'all for protection, it also makes me nervous because they're more likely to actually, like, shoot and kill you than me. So I'm like, damn, do I really want to call you out to help protect us in these streets when I'm putting you at risk?
Okay,
Right.
I like that. I
Right.
like this fight. I like this. So, my brother Zoo Barker, shout out to him, man, because he gave me a real good one on this one. He said to me, you'll know your comrade in passing because you will not view him as an enemy, and he will not view you as such. So, I know his rough exterior when I first met him, and he see how I carry myself and how I am.
Mm-hmm.
But not 1 second of the day did me and him have any look at each other as far as sizing each other up. I know I didn't. And it's funny that he came to me with that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I knew my comrade when I saw him. I know my sisters when I see him. Y'all know y'all brothers when y'all see him. The thing is that we know all our brothers ain't our brothers, and we know all our sisters ain't our sisters. The point of the matter is for those who are, we promote what we are. I promote my connection between y'all because that's the right thing to do. And for those who fall to the wayside because they didn't want that, then they're just going to have to find theirs where they find it at. I found mine where I need it. I found it with my family. I found it with my friends. I found it within my sport. And I'm not even, listen, a lot of my friends, I got a lot of white friends inside my sport. They show me all types of love. And at the same time, I got some that, don't be feeling my ghost sometimes. But at the same time, they know who I am. They respect me for who I am, as I do with them. But as far as when it comes down to levels of disrespect, anything like that, no, it ain't happening. Because outside of that sport, they have their lives that they live, and they understand. They understand where I come from. They understand where they are. So they know they know how it is respecting somebody.
Mm-hmm.
You have that type of level when you in a room full of sharp objects. Everybody respect each other. Feel me? So it's like, it's a blessing. But at the same time, outside of that, there needs to be a code of conduct amongst men so that we can be the men who are recognized to be the brothers to our sisters. Plain and simple. I hope, and the reason why I wore this shirt, because I wanted y'all to know I represent something good. I represent something pure. This is the brother that y'all got sitting in front of y'all. This is the brother that's trying to be a brother to y'all sister.
Yes, absolutely. We got to get back to all the things that the generations before us used to do, which is protect one another. So, June, how can people keep up with you and what you're doing?
Okay, so I'm on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, X's and Arrows. On Instagram, AXEZ_N_ARROWZ. But you can find me as soon as you put AXEZ in there, you'll see me with my hat spun to the side. But you can find me at Bury the Hatchet too. Find me there. I like to work out a lot, so any gym that possibly. But you can find me around. I'm always buzzing around. I try my best not to just be stuck on social media because that interpersonal relationship is real, like, key to me. So.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you so much for being with us this evening. We really appreciate it. And we appreciate you being vulnerable enough to share your story because that's not always easy.
Yes, definitely. And in light of Black History Month, I want to say continue to create your history. Just as a Black man, you're already writing your story and your script, and you've already made a major influence on people. So continue doing what you're doing. And Melita, you too. Your herstory is out here. Black History Month is not just February. We make it every day. We write our stories every day. We are literally in the midst of writing history books. So we gotta keep that energy up.
Absolutely.
Can you share some tea about what's going on this weekend with your services, ma'am?
Oh, yeah. So if y'all aren't doing anything tomorrow, I am working with Straight Ahead Abolition. They are doing a day of healing for people who have been affected by gun violence. It's taking place at Mill Creek Rec Center in West Philly on 47th Brown. It's a free event. There's going to be services such as Reiki, sound healing, yoga, and art therapy. It's free for folks to come out and just come together and heal.
I love that. I love you guys so much. I love just the energy that we're bringing in with it being the Black History vibes. We are the Black History, and just to see the impact that we've all have been making, even in Delaware County and outside of Delaware County. the work goes beyond, just activism. Advocacy continues on so many different routes. So, yeah, y'all.
All right. Well, until next time.
Yes, until next time, thank y'all for tuning in. Like I said again, it's your host, Diamond, with What's News Delco, and
Lee with the T.
and Mr. Armstead Harris.
All right, y'all.
All right, bye, y'all.